أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا واللعنة دائمة الباقي لأعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: واتخذوا من مقام إبراهيم مصلى. صلوات. Tonight is the Thursday Night Majalis, where we are also commemorating the tragedy which took place on the 8th of Shawwaal in the year 1343, which corresponds to 2nd of May, year 1925, when the Wahhabis demolished the shrines of Al-Baqi and the companions of the Prophet in al-Baqī, the historical cemetery in Medina. This all goes back to the issue of the perspective of Wahhabis about building of shrines. When it comes to even building or building a shrine over a grave of a Nabi or an Imam or a Wali or a Shaheed, from the perspective of the Wahhabis, they say this is haram. They look at it from a very narrow outlook, where they say building the shrines or visiting the shrines, even of a Nabi, is idol worshipping. And that is the understanding that they have. Of course, you will see it's the same mentality, where you had people a few years ago who demolished the shrine of our Imam in Samarra. And even now, if you look at the situation in Bahrain, when the Bahraini forces supported by the Saudis went around suppressing the Shias, one of the things they have done is they have actually gone to the shrines of the religious leaders built centuries ago, and they demolished that also. And in that, they also even demolished the Masjid, which was built 400 years ago. Of course, there they are saying it didn't have a permit. I don't think even they themselves that they have their own records 400 years back. And it's all an attempt basically to erase historical sites of the Shias in Bahrain. And so this is also the week, as I had decided about 3 months before Ramadan, and that was the pattern we were using. One Thursday for tafsir, one for hadith, and the third one for fiqh and ahkam. This week happens to be the week of tafsir. And so I'll use both this occasion as well as the division of Thursday nights to different themes. And let us look at the Quran. What does the Quran say about building a shrine? Erecting a building over a grave of a Nabi, or a Rasul, or an Imam, or a Shaheed, or any, righteous person who had contributed to the better understanding of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for this, what I would like to do is, I would like to go to Surah Al-Kahf. This is a famous surah. I'm sure many of you know this story of Ashab al-Kahf. This is about the 7 individuals, young people, who lived in the last quarter of the 1st century of the Christian era and the early days of the 2nd century of the Christian era. And they lived at the time when the Roman emperor at the time, by the name of Trajan, who ruled from the Christian era of 98 to 117. He was a very vicious tyrant and an idol worshipper, and he used to force the people to worship idols. And because of that, he went to the extent that in the year 112 of the Christian era, he issued an order that any citizen refusing to worship an idol would be considered to be a traitor to the state and liable to be condemned to death. You know, even these days, sometimes if you go to countries like Tunis and others, I hope, you know, things have changed now after this change in the Arab world. But a few years ago, Tunis actually had declared that anyone who identifies himself or herself as a Shia will be considered state, you know, against the security of the state, and they will be dealt with in that way. And so even this person, you know, basically was saying that if people do not worship idol, they will consider to be traitor and condemned to death. And this is where these 7 individuals who were Christians, believers of Isa ibn Maryam, who did not believe in idol worshipping, they sat down and they said, what do? We have only 2 choices. Either we give in to the majority pressure and start worshipping idols, or we refuse and be killed. And none of these options are good options. And so they decided basically to move away from that city, go in isolation where they can still, you know, maintain their own faith. And this is where these 7 individuals basically were going out of the town. They asked one of the shepherds about the direction towards the hill, and he showed them the way, and the dog of this shepherd started following this group. And that's where you see in the story of Ashab al-Kahf, that there were these 7 individuals and a dog who was with them. Eventually they reached to a cave where they found it to be suitable, and they decided to make that as a refuge for themselves. So they don't deal with this pressure by the king of worshipping idols. They pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I'm just summarizing the ayat. I don't want to go into detail, we don't have that much time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah Kahf actually even describes the direction of the cave, how in the morning the sunrise will go from which direction. And based on the descriptions which are there in the Quran, the most likely place which would fit those descriptions from the Quran is the place in Jordan known as the cave of Ashab al-Kahf, not the one in Syria or other places. Because if you look at the studies done by some of the experts on this issue, you know, the cave which is there in Jordan seems to be the most authentic one. Even Allah Ta'ala actually, you know, is inclined in accepting that one. They prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah showered His mercy on them in a very unique way. And why He did this, you know, we'll know later on. He basically made them go to sleep for a long, long time. They were not put to death. They slept. And they slept for not 1 week or 1 month or 1 year or 10 years. They slept for 300 years. And after 300 years, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to raise them. And this is where the reason will come out later on. That the people of that time, you know, after this passage of 3 centuries, you know, they had become believers now in that region. But they still had some doubts about the concept of resurrection. They still had difficulty in accepting this concept that there will be a day when Allah will raise us back to life. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to make this Ashab al-Kahf, the 7 individuals, as an example for those people. And so when they woke up, they didn't realize this 3 centuries have passed. You know, they started talking to one another. Quran says they asked one another, how long we have been sleeping here? One said maybe 1 night, and another said maybe a day or 2. And so they said, well, we are feeling hungry. So they asked one of them to go to the town, you know, find a good grocery shopper and get some good food. So he went with the coins of 3 centuries old coins. But when he went to this, the town there, he looked at it, everything has changed. Even the structure, the houses, even the dress of the people is different from what I thought yesterday. This is what he's thinking. So what has happened? Is it a new place? And he was still confused himself. And even people looking at him, his attire of those days, things had changed in 300 years. So they were looking at him in a weird way. So he then bought certain items for the food, and to pay that merchant, the shopkeeper, he took out those coins. And he said, these are antique. I'm not going to buy this. Give me the current coins. And he says, well, what do you mean this is not current? So he looked at it and he saw, the name of the king, Trojan, was there. And he said, this is 300 years old coin. And so what's the name of the king of this time? And he was told, well, his name is Theodosius. And the people all are Christians in the city now. They are, good people. And so this conversation others heard, and then this news spread. That is 7 individuals who were lost in our history. Because people were looking for them, and this story was going from one generation to another. There were 7 people who did not want to worship idols that had gone away, and he is one of them. And so people gathered around him, and eventually he told them his story, took them to the cave. And now there was a confusion there. They were saying, what happened? Why are these people coming? Are they coming to kill us or force us to do idol worshipping? They didn't know. And this is where we see that after these people had gone, this was actually a symbol of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to show them. Because if you look at ayat number 21, Allah says, thus we made the people of the city acquainted with the Ashabul Kahf, so that they may know that the promise of Allah is true, and that there is no doubt in the coming of the hour of resurrection. So the whole purpose of keeping them alive for 300 years without them eating or drinking is one sign. And then raising them in that way from that slumber and sleep, and letting people know was a way to strengthen the iman of those Christians, so that they may be able to believe in the concept of Qiyamah in a more stronger way. Salawat. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then, after they came back, this fellow comes back to the cave, he puts them to death. Now they die. And when after they died, the people of the town now started having a dispute among themselves. They said, what do we do with them? Now they were not even sure whether they have died or they have been put to sleep again. So, do we bury them? We just leave them like that? There was dispute. There was one group who was saying, فَقَالُوا ابْنُوا عَلَيْهِمْ بُنْيَانًا رَبُّهُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِهِمْ, from Surah Al-Kahf. One group, which seems to be of those who were weak in Iman, they said, we don't know. رَبُّهُمْ أَعْلَمُ بِهِمْ, their Lord knows whether they are sleeping or they are dead, and so we just seal this, the cave, and forget about it. Let Allah deal with them. But then the other group, the group which had actually now prevailed over the affairs of the city, these are the believers, true Christians of that time. Basically, they said no. They said, لَنَتَّخِذَ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا. These are good people. Allah chose them, protected them for 300 years, and now they have gone to their death. We are going to build over it or by that cave, a masjid, a place of worship. Now if you look at the whole narration, of course the story doesn't end there, it goes on. But my point for this issue of, the Wahhabi mentality of demolishing the shrines, is that if you look at the story of Ashabul Kahf in the Quran, You don't see anything. There is no indication of negativity in the Quran about the decision of this group, of the believers of that time, about لِنَتَّخِذَ عَلَيْهِمْ مَسْجِدًا, that we will build a masjid, a place of worship on that cave or by that cave. And not putting any negative remark after this statement shows that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala agreed with this concept. So we see that there is a precedence in the story, in the Quran, that, the believers there, consider these 7 individuals to be special, to be righteous people. And Allah used them to show the concept of resurrection. And so now that they are in a way, righteous and respected in the community, they decided to have a masjid by that cave. And so a masjid related to these individuals, to that grave, which is the cave which has now become their grave. And so we don't see any concept of shirk here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also agrees with him, with this issue, because there is nothing there in the Quran, in the entire context of the story, where Allah condemns this decision of the majority of the Christians in that city. Salawat. But they'll say, well, this is about the nations and the ummahs who came before Islam. Things have changed in Islam. Well, look at Islam itself. Look at the ayat from Surah Al-Baqarah, ayat number 125. You look at the Kaaba itself. There is the story of the building of erecting the walls of the Kaaba, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, remember the time when Ibrahim with his young son Ismail started building the walls of the Kaaba. After the wall had reached to the height of Ibrahim himself, in order to continue building it further, he needed to have a ladder or a platform on which he can stand and continue raising the walls. And this is where he selected a stone, which became like a stool or a platform for him to stand on it and continue the work. Now that stone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's Allah's order. He makes this stone, to preserve the imprint of the feet of Khalilullah. Ibrahim was a friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as a legacy of his work of building the walls of the Kaaba, Allah wanted something to be there as his signature. He's the builder. And what happened? That stone, it's still there. It has the imprint of the feet of Ibrahim alayhi salam. Now Islam came, the Kaaba itself had 300 idols within it. And when Muslims, conquered the city of Mecca, they destroyed all the idols, purified the Kaaba. But then when it came to Maqam Ibrahim, Rasulullah didn't say, throw this or shatter this. No, he allowed it to be there in the proximity of the Kaaba. And not only that, you look at the ayat of Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says that I have وَجَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا. We have appointed Mecca to be a destination for the people and a place of security and peace for them. وَاتَّخِذُوا مِن مَقَامِ إِبْرَاهِيمَ مُصَلَّى. Then He is ordering the Muslims. He says, and consider the Maqam Ibrahim, to be a place of musalla, a place to do salah. And that is where we do after the tawaf. What do we do? 2 rakat namaz, by or behind, on the sides of the Maqam Ibrahim or behind Maqam Ibrahim. This to an outsider who knows nothing about Islam, he might consider that to be worshipping that stone. But Islam still allowed it. And this is where we come to realize that this is not even grave of Ibrahim. It just has the imprints of the feet of Ibrahim, as a remembrance that he is the one who erected the walls of the Kaaba. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted that to be there He wanted it to be there close to his house, and he wanted that to become a place of doing the 2 rakat of namaz tawaf. Salawat. And so even when you look at the system that we have now in Hajj, there is no way of saying that, these kinds of showing respect to the signs and historical sites of Anbiya or Mursaleen is against the values of Islam. We see here in the example, look at Sa'i between Safa and Marwa. It has nothing to do with even any Nabi. It is actually to do with the mother of Ismail alayhi salam, a wife of a prophet and the mother of a prophet. The way you know the story that when Ibrahim alayhi salam was being tested by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he was told to leave his infant child and the mother there with whatever provision that he could carry with him. Once she ran out of water, she goes looking for water for the baby. And that's where when she goes to Safa, it was, sunny day. She saw mirage on the other side. She thought it's water there. She runs towards Marwa. In Marwa, she looks again the other side. There she realized there's no water there. She looks at Safa and she saw the mirage again. She goes to Safa 7 times. And this is where I would say that if it was the father who was being put in that test and trial, he would only go once and not go again, because he works by his mind. But this was Hajira, who was the mother, and she works by her heart. She goes again and again and again, 7 times. It is actually the manifestation of the struggle of a mother looking for water for her child. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liked this so much that He made it into a wajib, a rukn of Hajj. As long as the dunya is there, Islam will be there. And as long as Islam is there, Hajj would be wajib. And as long as Hajj would be wajib, Sa'i, in remembrance of the struggle of a mother by the name of Hajira, will be part of Hajj. So ask these Wahhabis, what are we doing there? Worshipping whom? We even try to go to those original rocks on Safa and Marwa to touch it, to reach all the way there. What is this? This is in remembrance of not even a Nabi or a Rasul. She is the mother of Nabi and a wife of a Nabi. And so this is where we see that there are examples in Islam, not only before Islam, where respecting and honoring and maintaining historical sites related to the Anbiya and the Mursaleen and their families, and the Shuhada and those who struggled for the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is part of the value system that we see in the Quran and in the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Look at the Kaaba itself. That Islam which is so, strict on the issue of Tawheed. No kind of shirk is accepted at all. Even Rasulullah is being told there is an ayat addressed singularly to him, that even if you commit shirk, I'm going to punish you. Of course, he couldn't do it, but that was the issue of sometimes, जैसे उर्दू में कहते हैं भाई बेटी को डांट रहे हैं, सुनाना है बहू को. But you're talking to the wall, but you want the neighbor to hear that message. तो कभी कभी डांट जो है रसूल पे पड़ रही है, लेकिन रसूल के लिए नहीं है. It is for the ummah. And so the shirk is something, in one ayat where Allah says, I'll forgive you everything except one. And that is shirk. I'm not going to forgive that at all. And the same Allah says to us that when it comes to your ritual prayers, not your du'as, your ritual prayers, you must face the Kaaba. What is Kaaba? Do you worship the Kaaba? No, we don't worship the Kaaba. We worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala towards the Kaaba because He has ordered us to do that. And that is what we have to understand, that there is a lot of room for symbolism in the deen of Islam, and the problem that we have with the Wahhabis is their narrow-minded way of looking at things, not opening their minds when it comes to the rationale and the understanding of the rituals of Hajj, as well as the ayat of Quran about the ummahs which had passed before us. Salawat. انہدا میں جنت البقیع کے مجلس کے سلسلے میں آج کل جو حالات ہو رہے ہیں اور بہت ہی تیزی کے ساتھ مکہ اور مدینہ میں جو تاریخی مقامات ہیں اس کو یہ ایکسپینشن اور ڈیولپمنٹ کے نام سے اریز کرتے جا رہے ہیں. تعجب ہے کہ دنیا میں ہر ملک کوشش کرتا ہے کہ اپنے ہسٹوریکل سائٹس کو پریزرو کریں, بلکہ کچھ اولڈ بلڈنگز کو بھی جو ہے سٹی آ کے وہاں شرط لگا دیتی ہے کہ آپ انٹرنلی جو کچھ کرنا ہے کریں, ایکسٹرنلی آپ کچھ چینج نہیں کر سکتے, بیکاز اٹ از اے ہسٹوریکل پلیس. وہ آپ اسٹینمور کو دیکھ لیں لندن انگلینڈ میں, یا المہدی سینٹر کو یہاں پکیرنگ میں دیکھ لیں, پرانا اسکول تھا. They can't do anything there. They can only change it inside, but nothing outside. تو جتنی زندہ قوم ہے نا, وہ کوشش کرتے ہیں کہ اپنے ماضی کو محفوظ رکھیں. اور یہ سعودیز یہ جہاں کے ہیں نجد کے, there are examples that we have that they actually use UNESCO to certify certain areas as historical places, جو آل سعود کے ابتدائی بادشاہوں کی جگہ تھی. تو اپنے آبا و اجداد کے اس قلعہ کو پریزرو کرنے کے لیے تو آپ سب کچھ کر رہے ہیں. باقاعدہ ٹورسٹ جاتے ہیں وہاں ان کی زیارت کے لیے. ابن سعود نے جو نیزہ مارا تھا وہاں قبضہ کرنے کے لیے ٹرائبل چیف کے اس قلعہ میں, اس کا ڈنٹا تو ٹوٹ گیا تھا, لیکن جو لوہا والا حصہ ہوتا ہے نیزہ کا, وہ ابھی بھی وہ دروازے میں ابھی بھی محفوظ ہیں. They have preserved it as a historical legacy ان کے پاور کی. لیکن جہاں رسول اور آل رسول کی بات ہے, اصحاب رسول کی بات ہے, رسول کی زندگی میں جو واقعات ہو رہے ہیں, اس کو ڈیولپمنٹ کے نام سے جو ہے برباد کر. قبر کی زیارت قبر پرستی نہیں ہے. There is a difference between visiting a grave of somebody as a way of respecting their legacy and their hard work to preserve Islam and worshipping the grave. خود آپ جو ہیں جاتے ہیں طواف کے لیے, آپ کیا کرتے ہیں؟ لاکھوں کی تعداد میں مسلمان روزانہ نماز پڑھتے ہیں کعبہ کی طرف. لاکھوں کی تعداد میں عمرہ اور حج پہ لوگ جاتے ہیں, طواف کرتے ہیں کعبہ کا. اور اس طواف کا جو پیرامیٹر ہے اس کے اندر ہی ایک علاقہ ہے کعبے کے علاوہ جو ہجر اسماعیل ہے. اس کو ہجر اسماعیل کیوں کہتے ہیں؟ اس لیے کہ وہ جو سیمی سرکل ہے اس کے اندر دو قبریں ہیں, جناب اسماعیل کی اور جناب ہاجرہ کی. اور وہاں وہیں مسلمان کھڑے ہوتے ہیں, اسی کے باہر کھڑے ہو کے نماز پڑھتے ہیں. تب یہ نہیں کہتے ہیں کہ بھائی یہ قبر پرستی کر رہے ہیں. اس لیے کہ مسلمان کبھی بھی جو ہے نہ کعبہ کی پوجا کرتا ہے, نہ ان قبروں کی پوجا کرتا ہے, نہ مقام ابراہیم کی پوجا کرتا ہے. مسجد النبی میں آپ جب نماز پڑھتے ہیں میجورٹی اس ایریا میں ہوتی ہے ذریعہ رسول سامنے ہے. ہم رسول کی عبادت نہیں کرتے ہیں, عبادت خدا کی ہوتی ہے اسی ڈائریکشن میں جو خدا نے کہا ہے. اگر ہمارے نبی کی ذریعہ سامنے ہیں تو اس کا مطلب یہ نہیں ہے کہ ہم ان کی پوجا کرتے ہیں. یہ ہمارے یہاں بھی بڑے مسئلے ہو جاتے ہیں. کبھی کبھی رمضان میں حضرت علی کا نام رکھ دیا گیا اوپر, اور مولانا یہ مشکل ہے نماز پڑھیں گے تو کیا ہوگا. ارے بھائی, آپ 16 آنا جو ہیں 100% کعبے کے سامنے نماز پڑھتے ہیں. کعبے کو پوجا کرتے ہیں یا اللہ کی؟ کسی چیز کے سامنے ہونا دلیل نہیں ہے شرک. نیت کو دیکھنا ہے. اور یہی بات ہے جو ان کو سمجھ میں نہیں آ رہی. پر 1925 میں وہ ظلم انہوں نے کیا ہے کہ جو عام طور سے مسلمان اہل سنت والجماعت والے بھی ان کے دلوں کو ٹھیس پہنچا. یہ صرف شیعوں کی بات نہیں ہے, وہابیوں کے علاوہ جتنے مسلمان ہیں شیعہ اور سنی سب مل کے جنت البقیع میں ہوا ہے. اسی خوف کی وجہ سے. شیعوں کی بات نہیں تھی. یہ انہوں نے روزے نبی پر ہاتھ نہیں لگایا ہے, ورنہ آئیڈیالوجی کے لحاظ سے وہابی جو ہیں یہ بھی برداشت نہیں کر سکتے ہیں کہ رسول کا ذریعہ ہو. اگر ان کے بس میں ہوتا تو اس کو برباد کر چکے ہوتے. لیکن یہ جانتے ہیں کہ صرف شیعوں کا معاملہ نہیں ہے, پورے عالم اسلام کا معاملہ ہے. آج ہم جب دیکھتے ہیں جنت البقیع کے قبروں, آج سے تقریباً 100 سال پہلے کی جو تصویریں ملتی ہیں حاجیوں کی, وہاں ایک عمارت تھی قبروں پر, گنبد تھا, چراغ جلتے تھے. لوگ روزے نبی سے نکل کے جنت البقیع جاتے تھے زیارت کے لیے. ابھی بھی مومنین جاتے ہیں, جب بھی وقت ملتا ہے جنت البقیع کے دروازے کو کھولا جاتا ہے. لیکن جب بیوی کے قبر کے پاس ہم لوگ پہنچتے ہیں, ہم اس وقت کو دیکھتے ہیں کہ حال فاطمہ کے ساتھ کیا ظلم ہوا ہے. مدینہ سے اتنا دور دور چلے گئے ہیں, وطن سے دور شہید کر دیا گیا ہے لوگوں کو. لیکن پھر بھی ہم مشہد کو دیکھتے ہیں. یقیناً امام رضا علیہ السلام غریب الغرباء ہیں, لیکن ان کے روزے کو دیکھتے ہیں, وہاں کے چراغ کو دیکھتے ہیں, وہاں کے عظمت کو دیکھتے ہیں, وہاں کی روشنی کو دیکھتے ہیں. پھر آپ جاتے ہیں نجف, جاتے ہیں کربلا, جاتے ہیں امام حسین علیہ السلام کی روزے کی رونق کو دیکھتے ہیں. سامرہ میں انہدام کیا تھا لیکن مومنین نے دوبارہ اس کی تعمیر کر لی ہے, اس سے بہتر بنایا جو پہلے تھا. کاظمین کی اس بارگاہ کو دیکھیں جہاں شیعہ اور سنی دونوں آتے ہیں باب الحوائج کی بارگاہ میں اپنے حاجات کی قبولیت کے لیے اللہ کی بارگاہ میں. لیکن ہر جگہ روزوں میں چراغ نظر آتا ہے, روشنی نظر آتی ہے. اور اے رسول, آپ کے روزے کی زیارت کے لیے ہم جاتے ہیں, وہاں بھی چراغ نظر آتا ہے, وہاں اندھیرا نہیں ہوتا ہے. لیکن جب اس رسول کے روزے سے نکلنے کے بعد بس بہت ہی مختصر فاصلے پر جب اس قبر پر جاتے ہیں جہاں جاتے ہیں فاطمہ زہرا کی قبر ہے, جہاں امام حسن مجتبیٰ کی قبر ہے, جہاں امام زین العابدین کی قبر ہے, جہاں امام محمد باقر علیہ السلام کی قبر ہے, جہاں امام جعفر صادق علیہ السلام کی قبر ہے, وہاں کچھ سوائے پتھروں کے اور کچھ نظر نہیں آتا ہے. اور قریب بھی اگر جانا چاہے تو ظالم ظلم کرتے ہیں. بس امام زمانہ سے اتنا ہی کہیں گے کہ اے مولا آپ مدد فرمائے, آپ کے بابا کی بارگاہ تو دوبارہ تعمیر ہو چکی ہے, لیکن اس دن کا انتظار ہے کہ آپ کا ظہور بھی ہو اور آپ کے جدہ کا یہ مقبرہ جو ہے دوبارہ شان و شوکت کے ساتھ تعمیر ہو. ربنا آتنا فی الدنیا حسنۃ وفی الآخرۃ حسنۃ وقنا عذاب النار ولعنۃ اللہ علی القوم الظالمین. خداوند اس کے بعد قبول فرما, ہمارے گناہوں کو بخش دے, ہمارے توفیقات میں اضافہ فرما, امام کے ظہور میں تعجل فرما. ربنا تقبل منا انک انت السمیع العلیم. You had people a few years ago who demolished the shrine of our Imam in Samarra. And even now, if you look at the situation in Bahrain, when the Bahraini forces supported by the Saudis went around suppressing the Shias, one of the things they have done is they have actually gone to the shrines of the religious leaders built centuries ago, and they have demolished that also. And in that they also even demolished the Masjid which was built 400 years ago. Of course there they are saying it didn't have a permit. I don't think even they themselves that they have their own records for 400 years back. And it's all an attempt basically to erase historical sites of the Shias in Bahrain. And so this is also the week, as I had, decided about 3 months before Ramadan, and that was the pattern we were using. One time when the Roman emperor at the time by the name of Trajan, who ruled from the Christian era of 98 to 117, he was a very vicious tyrant and an idol worshipper, and he used to force the people to worship idols. And because of that, he went to the extent that in the year 112 of the Christian era, he issued an order that any citizen refusing to worship an idol would be considered to be a traitor to the state and liable to be condemned to death. Even these days, sometimes if you go to countries like Tunis and others, I hope things have changed now after this change in the Arab world. But a few years ago, Tunis actually had declared that anyone who identifies himself or herself as a Shia will be considered state in the year 1343, which corresponds to 2nd of May, year 1925, when the Wahhabis demolished the shrines of Al-Baqi and the companions of the Prophet in al-Baqī, the historical cemetery in Medina. This all goes back to the issue of the perspective of Wahhabis about building of shrines. When it comes to even building or building a shrine over a grave of a Nabi or an Imam or a Wali or a Shaheed, from the perspective of the Wahhabis, they say this is haram. They look at it from a very narrow outlook, where they say building the shrines or visiting the shrines, even of a Nabi, is idol worshipping. And that is the understanding that they have. Of course, you will see it's the same mentality, where one Thursday for tafsir, one for hadith, and the third one for fiqh and ahkam. This week happens to be the week of tafsir. And so I'll use both this occasion as well as the division of Thursday nights to different themes. And let us look at the Quran. What does the Quran say about building a shrine? Erecting a building over a grave of a Nabi, or a Rasul, or an Imam, or a Shaheed, or any, righteous person who had contributed to the better understanding of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for this, what I would like to do is I would like to go to Surah Al-Kahf. This is a famous surah. I'm sure many of you know this story of Ashab al-Kahf. This is about the 7 individuals, young people, who lived in the last quarter of the 1st century of the Christian era and the early days of the 2nd century of the Christian era. And they lived at أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء وخاتم المرسلين سيدنا ونبينا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا واللعنة دائمة الباقي لأعدائهم ومنكر فضائلهم وغاصب حقوقهم من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه الكريم: واتخذوا من مقام إبراهيم مصلى. صلوات. Tonight is the Thursday Night Majalis where we are also commemorating the tragedy which took place on the 8th of Shawwal.